Hello and welcome to Understanding Azure Subscriptions. Now, before you can do anything in Azure, you have to sign up for an Azure subscription. Now, what a subscription does is provide you with authenticated and authorized access to the different Azure products and services that are available. And of course, once you have your Azure subscription provisioned, you can then provision resources within it. You can deploy VMs, virtual networks, etc. One of the things to remember about an Azure subscription is that what a subscription is really is a logical unit of Azure services. And that logical unit of Azure services links back to an Azure account. That Azure account is an identity in Azure Active Directory, or it can be in a directory that Azure AD trusts. An account can actually have one subscription, or it can have multiple subscriptions, each having their own different billing models. And each of those subscriptions can also have their own access management policies applied. Essentially, what you do with an Azure subscription is you use it to define boundaries around Azure products and services. There's actually two types of boundaries that Azure subscriptions function as: billing boundary and access control. Now, when used as a billing boundary, an Azure subscription determines how the Azure account is billed for using Azure. For example, you can create multiple subscriptions for different types of billing requirements. And what will happen is Azure will generate separate billing reports and invoices for each of those subscriptions, and that allows you to better organize and manage costs. For example, if you have multiple departments within a large organization, you could, in theory, have each department with its own subscription so that billing could be managed by department. Now, that said, you can also use Azure subscriptions as an access control boundary. So what do I mean by using a subscription as an access control boundary? Well, Microsoft Azure applies access management policies at the subscription level. That being the case, if you create separate subscriptions, what you can do is reflect the different organizational structure within your company. And using the same department example I used when discussing the billing boundary, if you have different departments and you want to apply specific Azure subscription policies to each of those departments, you can do that by using separate subscriptions for each department. Essentially, this billing model allows you to manage and control access to the resources that users provision with specific subscriptions. Generally speaking, you'd want to create additional subscriptions for resource or billing management purposes. For example, you might create additional subscriptions to separate different environments. You might do it to separate your organizational structure. You might do it for billing requirements, or you might do it because there are certain subscription limits. For example, the maximum number of express route circuits for each subscription is 10. So if you have an environment where you need more express route circuits, then what you could do is create multiple subscriptions to bypass that limit of 10 express route circuits. So in the case where you do have multiple subscriptions, what you can do is organize them into what are called invoice sections. An invoice section is a line item on your invoice, and that line item is going to show the charges incurred for that month. So for example, you might need a single invoice for your entire organization, but you need to break it out by department or team or project. So depending on your needs, you can set up these multiple invoices within the same billing account. And to do this, you create what are called billing profiles. And each billing profile is going to have its own monthly invoice and payment method associated with it. The image on your screen shows what this type of billing structure looks like. So when you sit the exam, it's important to remember that a subscription provides you with authenticated and authorized access to your Azure products and services, and it allows you to provision your resources. An Azure subscription is a logical unit of Azure services that links typically to an Azure account, which is an identity in Azure Active Directory, or it can link back to a directory that Azure AD trusts. It can also function as a billing boundary or as an access control boundary. And if you have multiple subscriptions, you can organize them into different invoice sections by creating billing profiles.